just a few quick programming notes. One thing I think Allison mentioned earlier about our Facebook page, or somebody did. We all like seeing pictures of ourselves, so sometimes we have audience pictures on our Facebook page. You're welcome to check it out, see if you're there, whatever, tag yourself. And also, we are videotaping this event, so hopefully, if not today, then first of next week we'll have a video that you can check out if you missed some points or if you want to share it with someone else. Secondly, in your package, in the Celistics folder that you should have on your, in front of you, there should be a little USB drive that looks more like a credit card. So we alert that to you only so that you know it's there, and if you can pull it out and use it, so instead of, yeah, 2 gigabyte drive. And finally, I'm going to ask Javier Gonzalez from eMerge Americas and Technology Foundation of the Americas to come up and just real quickly, because several people asked me questions about the ad on the back of the program for the eMerge Americas event. I'm asking him to come up and real quickly tell you a little bit about what's going on with that event. Alice mentioned it as well at the first of the program, but that event, the primary goal of that event is to do for Miami what already occurs with import-export trade, what already occurs with the sales offices for the multinationals. Miami is sort of the hub or the capital of Latin America. American economy almost on a regular basis, when they do a survey of what's the best city in Latin America to do business, Miami wins. To some consternation from cities that are actually in Latin America. But Miami always wins, so the idea of this Technology Foundation of the Americas and the idea of eMerge Americas is to make Miami the place that has all the pieces that a technology hub needs, from education to venture capital and so forth. So I'm going to ask Javier to come and talk a little update about what's going on with the event and how you can get involved.
Thanks, Ken. Good morning, everybody. Actually, Allison and Ken did a lot of the pitch for me, so I'll keep my remarks brief so we could move forward with the program. So, like Ken mentioned, I'm the executive director at the Technology Foundation of the Americas, and what eMerge America is really all about is the movement. It's almost like a point in time. It's an event, not a trade show. It's something that we think is really going to be transformative for this community. We have a lot of great momentum. I was blown away by the export numbers that will be shared next week at the Trade Connections event. But we really are becoming this technology hub, and we think that eMerge America is going to serve as that spark that takes it to a whole nother level. If you look at all the things that are going on in this community, from the accelerators, what the universities are doing, what organizations like the Beacon Council and the Greater Miami Chamber are doing, I mean, it's all great. And we have significant support from Miami-Dade County, from the Knight Foundation, who's funding a lot of great programs, from Medina Capital, who's the private side of what our founders is working on. So there's a lot of great momentum, but it really is a movement that takes everybody in this room. All the connections that we have into Latin America, that's our niche, that's our differentiator, that's how we complement what's going on in Silicon Valley and what's going on in New York. And what's going on in other global technology centers. We can be one of those if we play to our strengths, and that's what eMerge Americas is all about. We are definitely going to play off of what Miami is known for in terms of the different industries, whether it's financial services, healthcare, media and entertainment, but we're also going to be fun. So that's where that South by Southwest aspect and that Art Basel aspect comes into play. So we hope you'll all be there. We hope you'll all be ambassadors for what we're doing. Talk to your contacts. We have a great team on board at the Technology Foundation of the Americas. Our sales director, Geraldo, is here. So please send him all your leads so we can get that going. We have our marketing director, Rebecca's back at the office. Our content strategist, Mariana Lopez, is here. So please, get involved, get engaged. We need as much help, and Ken's been a great champion for us, and we'll continue spreading the message. So we thank him, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the program.
Thanks very much. And it has been really fun to watch that from the very beginning, when Manny Medina put together a handful of people and said, this is my idea, and to watch it over the last 6 to 9 months or a year, whatever it's been by now, as this thing comes to fruition. It's going to really be a terrific event in May, and just a terrific movement. So I'm going to turn it over to Allison Clapper-Leon, who's going to guide us through the second panel. I didn't do a good enough job the first panel, I guess, so I got booted to the second team. I'm going to turn it over to Allison, and we'll go from there. And if you have questions, I'm the guy you need to look to.
So, but in that case, then let me go ahead and introduce my panelists, which I was hoping that Ken was going to do. But anyway, we have this welcome. We're really excited to have this discussion now about not only have we learned about how mobility is enabled, but now we want to talk about what is enabled by mobility, where's it going, what are the trends, what are people doing, how do we see this changing in Latin America as we see it changing here as well. So I'll just go in order from memory. This is Mark Crofton. He's the VP of Mobility for SAP for Latin America. Was on the global team at SAP for a while. Has a lot of consultant experience with McKinsey as well, and speaks German and Spanish. So he's our resident German-American Spanish guy, I guess. Don't know where you were born, but
From Florida.
from Florida. And over here we have Richard Wadsworth Delgado, who's our resident Peruvian. Thank you so much. He is the head of e-commerce and mobility for MasterCard for Latin America. So we're very happy to have you there, and so have you with us as well. And then we have Juanjo Duran, who is the head of content strategy for YouTube, which is obviously part of Google, for US Hispanic and content leading into Latin America. So together we have a really nice representation of entertainment, of shopping, of commerce, and of productivity, if you will, on the back end. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with a general question, and I think I'm going to start with Richard. Okay, so the question is,
I'm in the middle, right?
You're in the middle, exactly. That's exactly right. So we often think of cellular payments in terms of convenience or the ease of use, but it's really a lot more than that. Can you talk about how the unbanked are being brought into the system, and how the 40% of the informal economy is changing and within the region?
So let me start by providing a little bit of context, right? As somebody said, what about the dumb phones, the feature phones, right? So we're talking about LAC. We are not talking about the US. We're not talking about, let's say, a developed country. So, but the fact is, we have a lot of mobile phones, a lot of mobile penetration. Around 80% of those mobile devices are prepaid devices. Mm-hmm. From those, a lot are feature phones, right?
Feature phones meaning not
basic
smartphones,
phones, right?
right?
Not
Most
smartphones,
of you all know
right?
that, I guess, yeah.
That's one side. The other side of the story is Latin America is booming. Smartphone penetration is growing, double digits year over year, right? E-commerce is growing a lot, double digits year over year, right? I can say that Latin America is the faster growing region in the globe in e-commerce for MasterCard and in general for everybody. So, I mean, we have a good momentum, right? And the thing is, if we want to do something, we really want to turn technology, all the beautiful things that we heard, into business, then we need to put our consumer in front of us, the user, right? And then you start segmenting your value proposition. So you will see that in LAC you have what we call transitional markets, like for instance Brazil, or maybe Chile, or maybe Mexico, where, let me just pick Brazil. You have more smartphones in Brazil than in Germany.
Really?
Today, right? So is that a transitional market? Of course, because there you have a lot of feature phones as well. So how you segment your value proposition depending on what is the consumer looking for, what is the problem you want to solve, right? So depending on the markets, we see an approach, of course, based in smartphones, based in the e-commerce growth, based in how, as in the US or the, let's say, developed markets, you can finalize a transaction doing a payment using the smartphone, right? And in some other cases, how we address some more basic needs, if you will. Depending on the market, let's say 30-40% of the people is banked, have access to financial services. So there's a huge opportunity to really penetrate that, grow that, and really expand that reach, right? Offering new, different financial services to new people, to a new market, new consumers, and also new merchants, what we call merchants, right? So they can really do transactions, financial transactions then. So we have these two approaches. One, based in, of course, mobile wallets, smartphones, what we call digital convergence, right? Bringing together the possibility to do a payment using your phone to an e-commerce merchant, or a presential payment using near-field communication, contactless technology, to existing POS that already enable that technology, right? Or we can do what we call mobile money, which is technology based in feature phones again, in basic phones, where the people using SMS technology or USSD technology, which is a very simple technology, can also leverage the phone and do financial transactions, right? And for that, what we are doing, and I'll finish with that, is trying to bridge, if you will, the mobile network operators industry with the financial institution industry to work together in those two aspects.
And I know that actually it's interesting because SAP is also sort of involved in, I mean, you do so many different mobile applications, but one of the areas that you're also focusing on is banking and also the M2M area. But you work in conjunction with a company like MasterCard. Can you talk a little bit about what, how SAP thinks about mobility and what it is that you're focusing on? I know it's one of your 5 core strategies for the entire company.
Sure. So good morning. Yeah, I think the way the way we're thinking about it is, and the way I always explain it is, it's the new container, right? In which it seems very obvious, but you have to talk about it. So 10 years ago, whatever, you wanted to see a movie, you went to Blockbuster, you got a VHS tape, right? You got it in your car, you went down there, you got the tape, you went home, and you watched it. 8 years ago, you're like, great, I want to do the same thing, but you got your DVD from Blockbuster. You got in your car, you drove down there. 5 years ago, you did Netflix, right? You go, but you get your DVD through mail. Right? Now, if you want to see the movie, you're going to stream it from Netflix. So the content's the same. Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we're up to 12, right? Maybe. But the content is the same. You're still seeing Vin Diesel do whatever. I've never seen one of the movies, but the content is the same, but the way you get it is what's changed. So the change, which seems so obvious, but what I still see us doing, and that's the fundamental premise of SAP's mobility business, but what I still see folks doing, and I was in Argentina and Uruguay last week, is separating mobile from the business process, which I think is a mistake. So I'm talking to a CIO of a company. He said, oh, I'm rolling out CRM, Customer Relationship Management, the tool that sales guys use to keep track of your customers, your opportunities, right? He said, so I'm going to roll out CRM, and then once I get it rolled in, I'm thinking about 6 months later, I'll probably roll out the mobile component. I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. I said, do your sales guys leave the office? He said, yeah, pretty much every day. Because if my sales guys didn't leave the office, I wouldn't have sales guys for very long. And I said, do they have mobile devices? He said, yeah. I said, do they want to see information about their customers on their mobile devices? He said, yeah, in fact, they're already asking me for it. I said, then why would you roll out CRM in the back end and then come back 6 months later and roll out? And it seems so obvious to everybody. Yeah, that's obvious, but it's a mental change. Don't separate mobile from the business process, right? It's just your new screen.
It's kind of like what Jose Antonio was talking about with the box and then the wheels. Just put it together. So Juanjo, obviously, YouTube is becoming a very integral part of how we're getting our entertainment as well as our information. And I think you said something like 100 hours of video is being uploaded on YouTube every minute. Can you talk about how you're organizing and how you're monetizing that content, and a little bit about YouTube, please?
Yeah, it's amazing statistic, and it has just doubled in the past 2 years. And I don't have the specific from those 100 hours are uploaded into YouTube every minute, but from the mobile perspective, but a year ago it used to be 3 hours. So I bet that has doubled or tripled.
3 hours.
So a lot of content is coming into YouTube nowadays, not only from the user, but also from production companies and broadcasters and record labels. And we are enabling them to get the most out of their content. So we are enabling them to get revenues out of that content. And the most important part is we are organizing. That's what we are known for. We are good to do, right? Searching and getting that content. So we're organizing that content. So for the user is easy to get access to that content. So that's something that we're doing. We're focusing, and the group that I lead is focusing on getting professional content into the platform. So you can see Vin Diesel's movie not only on Netflix, but you can see it here. So YouTube has evolved tremendously from being just the place where you used to see funny cats and dogs in skateboard to nowadays is the place, a lot of people don't know this, but it's the second world largest search engine. You go there to search whatever you need. And one of the most important topics, followed by music, music first, and then the second one is how to. You mentioned that. How do you do things? So it's more than just how to do a recipe. How do you install an IP camera? Whatever. We are organizing the world's largest knowledge library in the world. That's that we are doing, and we're making it very accessible for the user. We think that mobility is more than mobile devices, tablets. We think that the user and the mobility terms goes along with going into taking your content, watching it on your PC, on your mobile tablet, and then you're traveling, you're with your friend, and he has a smart TV, and you want to show him something, you don't have battery on your cell phone, you can just go into his game console, and there's YouTube. You can access that
with the
content.
same interface.
Exactly, the same interface, super easy, and it will get to know you, it will suggest you things that you like, and that's what we are doing in terms of organization.
And are you guys encountering any challenges with bandwidth? Or, I mean, all of this is obviously stored somewhere. It's stored on the cloud, if you will, or it needs to be accessible 24/7. Can you talk a little bit about how that might be an issue, or what you're doing to what are you seeing in the future for that?
So let me just, I've got something quick to add here, story. I was in Sao Paulo a few months ago, and you say, oh, okay, I can understand if you're 200, 300 kilometers outside of Sao Paulo or 100 kilometers outside Mexico City, maybe the bandwidth wouldn't be great, things like that. But I'm talking about downtown Sao Paulo, and I was talking to a CIO, and I said, talking about apps and how to get, in this case it was a hospital, how to get information when the patients come in. He said, oh, no, Mark, I got it. Salesforce, which is a great company. And he's like, I've got this web app, and I'm just going to get the information when they come in, use this free web app that Salesforce gives me. So, okay, cool, great. I go in the reception area, and I've got no bars, right? In the middle of Sao Paulo, and those of you who travel to Latin America frequently, you've experienced this. So the capability to have online and offline, and online when available, is fundamental, I think, in Latin America. Not just 200, 300 kilometers on an oil platform, but in the city. So you want to think, and this sort of leads into the second point, which is what you always get asked, well, what kind of application should I build? And you want to think about things like, do I need online capability? Do I need offline capability? For some applications, web only is great. It's easy to build. You do it, boom, you bang it out. It's fine. If you're on an oil platform off the coast of Brazil, I'd argue that may not be the best one. But the second thing is, what OS, what operating system? I get asked, Mark, what's the dominant operating system? And again, if you're on an oil platform off the coast of Brazil, you're probably looking at Windows or something like that. But if you're building something for your Salesforce, then these, we sales guys aren't the brightest guys in the world. Make it iOS, make it easy to use, and you're out the door. So I think you got to think about things like that when you think about building mobile apps.
Yeah.
So Juanjo, I don't know.
Yeah. In terms of connectivity, I think it's a big challenge for Google. It's something that we are focused as a company. For every person connected in the world, there are 2 that are not. So that's a third that it's connected. That leaves us with 5 billion people that are not connected. So that's a challenge. A lot of those people are in Latin America and developing countries. So for us, we have, just like you were saying, Richard, seeing one of the fastest growths in the market in Latin America in terms of connectivity, and we're seeing really fast growth in terms of viewership. But the growth from companies like us is going to come from getting more people on the web. That's a target that we have as a company.
Okay.
The good news is that we don't see that as a long term. We think by the end of the decade, most people are going to be connected to the earth. And obviously, there are crazy projects like Google. There's one that you can Google called Loon, where we are experimenting with balloons that are flying in the sky all over the world, giving connectivity. Obviously, as we are doing that, there are some other companies trying to get the world connected. So I will say that's a challenge, and that's where we could see the growth coming in a lot of areas.
What I will say is that with people like this, we are going to have infrastructure limitations always, right? So, I mean, today you have a specific context, and I think our people in LAC is able to manage that. The consumers are going to always find a way to do things. Internet access, for instance, today in LAC, right? You can go to Peru and find a cabina internet. You can go to, I don't know, Brazil and find a LAN house, which is the same, or a cyber cafe, depending how you want to call it. So our people in LAC is going to solve the problem anyways. The mobile network operators, the telecommunications companies are investing on that. That is happening, right? We're going to have smartphones, definitely, and that's going to happen. But between today and that moment, at that point of time, I can tell you the consumer is going to find a way. That's one thing. The other thing is, again, I keep insisting on this, if you really want to do business, you need to segment your market, right? And depending on the consumer need, then maybe you can leverage the existing technology to do things today, and then, build the path for the future. That is exactly what we are doing, for instance, with mobile money. Of course, we know that, the bottom of the pyramid in terms of economy are going to have smartphones in the future, in the short future, right? But we want to do business today. We need to start educating people today, addressing their needs today, right? Yeah. So we are using what we have. If it is a dumb phone, then it is a dumb phone. If we have limitations in internet access, well, yeah, we see that the mobile network operators are working in, let's say, prepaid data plans. Great. But until that is deployed, we need to do something today. So that's why we need to sit down together, right, with the MNOs, the bank, the financial institutions, the government, somebody mentioned regulation, right, to make this happen today, or to really build the path moving forward.
I totally agree. Let me just add something. I think there's a huge business already. We shouldn't see connectivity as a block. We have now people watching 6 billion hours every month on YouTube. That's a lot. Yeah. So most of the 70% of the traffic of YouTube is coming outside of the US. And if we combine all the metrics and the fastest growing region in Latin America, you can see there are a lot of people already online watching a lot of content. So that leaves you a lot of areas of opportunity where you can place advertisement or enable your companies to do the business you want to do. So the people are going to find the ways, and there's already a big business.
And I think he said when we had our sort of our pre-conversation that 25% of the 6 billion hours of content are being accessed on mobile devices.
Right.
Which is, there you go.
And that has tripled since
incredible.
2011.
So one of the things I wanted to ask was about loyalty. How you guys are working to build loyalty, because in this day and age with such stratification, different operators or different video platforms or different customers, different credit cards, what it may be. Are there processes in place? Are there things that you're doing in the market that are that you're focusing on specifically to help build this loyalty, particularly among the mobile space?
I'll start. So I'll take it from the perspective of my customer, not from SAP. But, so I have a lot of customers that are in retail or in consumer products. And the idea here, so we can talk about loyalty to speak about a bigger idea, which is there's not a problem of information, right? There's a problem of information in the hands of the people who need it at that moment to make a decision or to take an action, okay? So let me use loyalty as an example. Most of my retail customers or CPG customers, they have a lot of information in the back end about what everybody's bought, right? Oh, you bought this, and you buy toilet paper, and you buy lettuce, and you buy everything like this. And we also have a module that does loyalty. We can manage your points for you, and so they know all this. So that information is sitting. And I'm sure there's somebody, if you go to Jumbo or Easy or something like that, one of these, and there's somebody sitting in a back office somewhere that knows exactly when if I were to walk in, like, okay, Mark bought this last time, that last time, et cetera, et cetera. But is there somebody in the store that knows that? And that's the thing. So what we're doing is we're building customer loyalty apps that are downloadable by the customer, free to the customer, that we'll sell to the retailer. And then when I come in, they can expose the system from the back-end SAP system that says, oh, this is the customer loyalty on Mark. He just walked in the store because he connected to your free Wi-Fi. And, oh, by the way, this is what he likes. He likes organic products because he does, and he likes this and that. And we just bought too much organic milk in this store. So why don't you send him a coupon that says, hey, Mark, go buy some organic milk and we'll knock 10% off. And the other thing is, if they do that to me and the next 100 people who come in like organic milk and only one of us takes up on it, then they're like, that's not a good offer. Let's switch over to the organic beans or whatever. So it does a couple things. The most important thing that we're doing around customer loyalty with our customers is taking that data that's sitting on some back-end system that somebody's ticket, that the guy or the woman in the store doesn't have, and putting that in the store that somebody can make the decision. And then you can make those decisions and change those decisions a lot more quickly.
And actually, I don't know if you have any comments on loyalty before I didn't want to interrupt. But
what I would like to say is, again, the way we face that challenge, because it is a challenge, is again putting the consumer in front of our strategy, right? That is the only thing that really is driving the way to move forward. Our business is a B2B business. We don't do, let's say, business with a consumer. We go through a bank or through a different entity to offer a payment mechanism to a consumer. So what we try to do is, based on segmentation, we try to address specifically the consumer needs, building relevance for that consumer. Let me put an example. In Brazil, we're going to launch MasterPass, our digital wallet in Brazil next year, right? Why we are doing that? Because, again, huge penetration of smartphones. If you go to the affluent population, as in the US, they are looking for convenience. They want to buy online using the mobile phone. They have different needs. So we are trying to bring those, let's say, solve those problems using this specific value proposition for them, working with the banks. Now, when you go to the bottom of the pyramid and you're talking about financial inclusion challenges, then it's different. But again, if you understand your consumer, you segment properly, then your value proposition is strong enough, is relevant enough for that consumer who's looking for something else. He's not looking for convenience at all. He's looking for something else. Then, so the problem is, okay, how do you transactions more quickly? How do you save some money? How do you control your budget? So how can I do airtime top-up in an easy way without spending money and without taking a bus to go to somewhere to pay a bill, for instance, right? So those are different needs. And then taking that into account, then we build what you just asked. We build loyalty, right?
We at Google are a user-first company. So that's our first focus. And how we build loyalty with the user while making the best in business platform for them in terms of content distribution. And we marriage that with the content owners that have their content on the platform. So we make available for those owners, even if they are just online users, people like you and me, or professional companies that are putting their content, we make it easy for them to get revenues out of content. So we marriage those things together, and in a way that it does not disturb the user. So they can view the content they like, and at the same time, they get impacted with advertising that is useful for them. So we, at the forefront of this strategy is an ad unit that it's called TrueView. So TrueView, it's an skippable ad. You may have seen it while watching a YouTube video. Skippable?
Skippable, okay.
Skippable. So you can skip the ad, you decide. So you only pay the advertiser if the user views that video. So that's a huge mindset change in the industry. But that's driving the CPMs really high, really high. We're almost getting in some markets into TV CPMs. And the advertisers on the other side are really producing ads that are really, really nice. There's an ad from Dove, Dove Sketches. If you haven't seen it, take a look. It's a 13-minute ad, and you can skip it. It made, in 2 days, 30 million views, things like that. So it's the brands and the users and the advertisers, everything is coming together to give a better experience for the user. And what we do is we provide that platform so we can marriage all those things together.
Ken, I think you said that there was a question?
I've always been curious about something. This is a question for Richard in particular. When it comes to e-commerce and mobile payment, now there's one extreme, for example, where you go to Africa or some parts in Asia where people are texting remittance. It's very, very active, and it's very, very, it's a growing market. And the other extreme is, I'm Japanese. Every time I go back to Japan, people are paying stuff on their mobiles all the time. They scan it. Yeah. It seems like it's a no-brainer, except when you come back here, companies are still struggling to set it up. I know that a couple of credit card companies, including yours, I think, is trying to set something up, testing in certain cities. It hasn't grown yet. So I've always been very curious about, like, why is it that in the U.S. this has not had happened when in some parts of the world it's booming? And then compare it to Latin America, where it is now, even compared to US, and what kind of challenges are there to bring it up to the next level?
So thank you for the question. I think it's a very, very valid question, and I'll try to answer that. So first of all, what you see here is a kind of let's say, the convergence of two. Forget about technology for a minute. This is the convergence of two industries coming together in one space, right? The mobile network operators, they do have their assets, right? They do have the phones, they have the infrastructure, and they have the legitimate, let's say, aspiration of having a value-added service, if you will, to their core business. I was working for Telefonica for more than 11 years, and I was part of the team that defined the strategy that Telefonica has for that specific regard, so I can tell you. And that is legitimate. And on the other hand, you have the financial institutions, right? They do have a business today. They're making money with the status quo today. So, but they know they need to evolve, right? So it's all about the business model. It's all about cooperation. It's all about how you align those business strategies to move forward. That's why a company like us, I'm sorry for the comment, but I think it is a good example of how to drive this, right? MasterCard is really an enabler. So that's how we see our company putting together, again, bridging the financial institutions with mobile network operators to make that happen. And as well, we are including what I call digital giants, for instance, like Google, right? We sit together, Google, financial institutions, mobile network operators, to build and launch the Google Wallet, right? Again, 3 industries cooperating. I think that is the challenge for countries like the US. And that's going to happen. That's going to happen. Conversations, negotiations, alignment is just a matter of time. Now, when you go to LAC, what I can tell you, let me position this in 2 ways, okay? when you talk about replicating in these transitional markets, when you talk about replicating what is happening in the mature markets with smartphones, with digital wallets, well, it is happening in some specific countries in LAC where the conditions are already in place. If you talk about Brazil, you have the 3 million POS, from the 3 million POSs that we have over there, a lot of them are already contactless payment enabled. Mm-hmm. So then the technology makes sense. Then you go there and think about, let's say, a convergence play. Then that's why, if you take a look to LAC again, Brazil is about 60% of the Latin American e-commerce. So again, to do mobile commerce makes sense, right? So that is happening, and again, the players are aligning. Today, we have a JV with Telefonica. We have a mobile money program in Brazil called Zoom, which is launched in April. Now we have more than 100,000 active users as of today. And that's a cooperation between, again, the financial institutions and a mobile network operator. We are working with another big player there, which is TIM. It's a telecom Italia, right? Mm-hmm. And they are partnering with Caixa Econômica Federal, again, to launch a mobile money program to address the bottom of the pyramid and to offer financial services to new consumers. Cooperation again. Now, it is not easy. We are working on this for, I don't know, years. Let me give you another point of reference. Africa. Mobile money programs in Africa or Asia, right? You have more than 100 mobile money programs in all over the world. From those, only 5 can show you blue numbers in the bottom left of their P&Ls. So it is challenging.
But it's coming.
But it's coming. So, and we need to drive the way. This is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And that's why we need to keep this, the momentum, we need to keep pushing, we need to keep aligning business, let's say, oriented conversation.
Yeah, so my question is sort of generally for Mark. So I'm John Dantzler. In the scenario that you brought up, the personal shopping or concierge shopping type scenario, how are you guys working around issues, like the consumer walks into a store but doesn't have Wi-Fi enabled? There aren't that many NFC phones on the market, and then there's, obviously issues with like in-building navigation, for example. So how are you guys, not only SAP but the industry in general, how are you guys working around those types of?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. I think there's a wider point that you bring up, which is, which we haven't talked about, but I think your in-store example is great. It's how can you use mobile to do things that are not possible without mobile, which is the more interesting part. Because we talk about, I can make my sales force 5% more effective, 10% more effective, which is great. That's a lot of money there, and I can do this. But what's really interesting to me about mobile is what are the things that you can do with mobile that you just can't do without it, right? I remember when I was in college, I had a girlfriend in Panama, so I went down to Panama to see her, and I'm walking down the pedestrian area, and these guys are standing outside their store clapping, right? Clapping really loudly. That way you'd look, and when you look, they'd say, "Oh, come on in my store," right? So imagine, and so that's effective. It is effective. Oh, it is effective. But if you're within a 10-meter radius or something, you can hear the clap. Imagine being able to. I'm on the other block, and I have my phone, and they can say, "Hey, we're having a sale on whatever," right? Mm-hmm. And they can get me from the other block. So it's not 10 meters, it's 30 meters, or they can get me from across town. Right? So I think those are the kind of interesting things that you can do. Like, hey, by the way, Mark, we've picked you up within a kilometer radius, and we've got based on the history we've got of you, or based on your preferences that you expressed, we know that you'd be interested in, what do I know, radios. So we're doing it. So that's the wider issue I think is interesting. To get back to your question, there's limitations. Richard's talked about them. And so, if it's feature phone, you got Wi-Fi. Actually, the Wi-Fi thing is good because even the number of smartphones we've talked about, what we haven't talked about, and the dirty little secret is, what percentage of those have data plans? Not all of them. Probably about 60 to 70% of them have data plans. Some people buy the latest phone because they want the latest phone, and they can take it, but they don't have a data plan because that's another expense. You know, you don't think about that. But let's say they have Wi-Fi. Great. Let's say they don't. Then you do short codes, and I think this is Richard's talked about a lot about mobile payments, and you mentioned Africa. SAP, we have a customer in Africa called Standard Bank, huge bank in South Africa. They, and I think this example is applicable to Latin America, they use mobile technology to open up accounts. So imagine this, you're a bank, they're not going to put branches all over South Africa. It's just not cost effective. But they have a lot of small stores, as we do in Latin America. I mean, think kioscos, tienditas, whatever you want to call them, whatever country you're in. There's a little store where you go and you get your milk, but you also go to refill your minutes. Well, now you can open a bank account there with your, again, whatever you call it, your document, right? So you can use that to go out, and they're opening 7,000 bank accounts a week in South Africa using an app that we built for the kiosquero, the kiosco guy. And so that's kind of an interesting thing as well. And none of those, by the way, if you're 500 miles outside of Johannesburg, none of those are smartphones. They're very few. They're all, and you can use a one-time code with texting to do that. So those are some of the things. I have no idea if I answer your question,
But that's interesting.
I hope I said something interesting. That was the goal.
There are going to be generations and generations of people who've never walked into a bank. The whole experience of what we know as banking will never even be part of their life.
Well, yeah. And you know, good. Have you been in a bank recently? I mean, it's...
ATM.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any... Yeah.
One more question here in the
good.
back.
Thank you. I'm Ana Maria Yumiseva. I'm the publisher of M2Commerce, Latam News, and FrecuenciaOnline.com. I have a question for the panel, a rather commentary and question. We all know that one of the main reasons why there hasn't been uptake in mobile commerce and mobile payments in Latin America is the issue of security. And I'm curious to know how both of your companies, the three of your companies, are addressing this issue both from an infrastructure side and also from the consumer side that's still not familiar or not trusting of the financial institutions and that would allow them to perform financial transactions securely and safely.
You want me to? Well, authentication is the word we use to validate that a consumer is who they are saying it is to make a payment, right? Because again, at the end of the day, you're talking about how you make a payment in a secure way. So authentication has evolved a lot. And the mobile device gives you another alternative to really, let's say, improve that area, right? In the past, the idea was to put just kind of a code, a password. Then we think about a different, let's say, way to improve authentication using separate channels, for instance, right? You can have the internet in one side and now the mobile phone in the other side. Now you can look at your mobile device really not only as your wallet. If you access your mobile device today, you have a PIN, right? Just to access your mobile device. That's the first layer of security.
If you use it, which that many people use it,
right,
so we encourage you to use it.
Good, but if you're looking for security, then you have it. The mobile device is enabling that, right?
Yep.
So in your wallet, you don't have that security. That's the first layer of security. Second, you can have your credentials in your phone and pass those credentials over the air to the merchant, so the merchant can look at the credentials that you have in your phone very easily. But other than that, let's imagine you can start a transaction over the internet in your laptop or your PC, right, or your internet cafe, and then that merchant online can ask you for a one-time password through your phone using, I don't know, SMS, right? And you put your password in another channel using another authentication channel. So in that way, you are, again, improving all the security layers that you as a customer need to really make sure that, you have security in the ways to pay. On top of that, the mobile device, you were talking about ATMs and bank branches. What you have in your hand is really a device that can allow you to really track your transactions, control your transactions. immediately, online. Again, what you need is a proper phone, proper connection. Yes, we know that, but that is available today. So whatever transactions you do, regardless if it is a $100 transaction, which is a micropayment, you can track that on your phone, right? So that allows a lot of, let's say, improvement in space for the authentication side of a payment transaction.
And then, of course, there's fingerprints.
Oh, yeah, and that's coming, right?
Just one to Ana Maria's question, one thing about you, I think you said the word security, right? And so we're talking about securing the payment, but there's one step before that too, right, which is securing the device. So there's something called mobile device management, which you may or may not have heard of, but I hope you have, or I hope your CIO has heard of, at least in your companies. And this is the idea about securing the device, securing access to the device, being able to remotely wipe that device, being able to lock that device down. And then the next step of that is mobile application management, where you can actually lock an application or do application level security. I'll give you another story because I like stories. I was talking to a CIO of a consumer products company in Costa Rica, and he said, oh, I've got a 500 sales guy that goes around the whole country on motorcycles selling. And I said, do they have a mobile device? He said, yep, they sure do. And they said, we have a little app on there that we use for taking orders. I said, that's fantastic. I said, do you have a price list on there? He said, we have 2 price lists on there. I said, that's great. I said, what sort of security, what sort of software do you have on there to secure that device? And that's where, and he's like, nothing. And I was shocked. Imagine this. He's got customer information. He's got 2 price lists. Yeah. And he's got 500 guys riding around on motorcycles throughout the back, who I don't know what the loss rate is on those things, but it's probably not that low. So when you think about security, we think about securing all the transactions, the apps, but you got to start, I think step 1 or even step 0 is you got to secure the device.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we're sort of using up our time.
We've used up our time. I want to thank you all for your attendance today, and I want to thank 3 great panelists. We had a great conversation. And I know there's a couple of you that have questions for the panelists. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer your questions for you. But thank you much for Mark, Richard, and Juanjo for participating today. Again, we have a great event next week. If your technology is what you're about, it's all about trade of technology goods through Miami. It's a fascinating event. And a great energy in Latin America event coming up later in the month. It's in the program, so take the program with you and see what we're up to. But again, thank you for being here.
And just if you're interested in mobility, I know it's going to be one of the tracks at the Merge Americas conference next year, so you guys should talk to Javi and Mariana.
There you go. Thank you for being here.